Before we dive into today's story, please take a moment to check out our friend's channel featuring captivating narratives. The link is in the description below. Drop by, subscribe, and show some love if you enjoy storytelling as much as we do. Now settle in for today's account. About a year ago, I collapsed in my office and was rushed into a grueling series of endless medical tests. The diagnosis, a severe liver infection that, if ignored, could have sealed my fate. My wife, Grace, was out of town attending a friend's wedding at the time, and I didn't mention anything on the phone. Wanted to spare her unnecessary panic since she was far away. When she returned to see me looking pale and weak, I knew I had to tell her the truth. Instead of the comforting embrace I craved, I got a look that felt more like disappointment than fear, almost as if she blamed me for not taking better care of myself. I threw myself into recovery, determined to stay positive even while juggling work and life-altering lifestyle changes. A strict diet, relentless exercise routines, and cutting out habits that once came easily. But even as I fought to reclaim my health, I began noticing the distant air between Grace and me. Initially, I chalked it up to the stress of the situation. However, I soon realized that whenever I attempted closeness, she would insist I rest or claim she was too tired. One evening, lying in bed with a palpable gap between us, I asked, "Grace, is something wrong?" After a long, hesitant pause, she admitted that she felt overwhelmed by the weight of my illness. I reminded her gently that love shouldn't push us apart, but her cold detachment lingered like an unspoken accusation. To escape the tension at home, I threw myself into work until my self-care routines began to slip. Meals forgotten, doses missed, the heavy consequences building up until one evening, a sharp, searing pain in my side knocked me to the floor. In a blur of voices and a haze of pain, I woke up in a hospital bed, an IV hooked to me. This time Grace was there, the one who called for help, rode in the ambulance, and sat by my bedside with worry in her eyes. "You scared me, Vince," she whispered, brushing her hand gently over my forehead. I mustered a weak smile, but she quickly reproached me for my recklessness, for neglecting the fundamentals of care. The doctor confirmed her fears with a stern warning. My health was declining dangerously, and without a proper break from work, things would spiral out of control. Grace was quick to insist that I take a medical leave. But for me, work wasn't just a job. It was a commitment to a friend's company, my second family since college. I'd been entrusted with a major responsibility, and the thought of stepping away filled me with dread. So despite knowing better, I returned to work after only a few days of rest. Then during a call with my doctor about my latest test results, my friend and CEO unexpectedly walked into my office, fury written across his face. "Vince, what the hell?" he roared. "You've been sick all this time and didn't tell me?" I tried to brush it off, insisting I could manage accordingly, but he exploded, accusing me of self-destruction by overworking while ignoring my health. Then his tone softened as he said, "I'm not just your boss, I'm your friend. You need to take a sabbatical. A full 6 months, no questions asked, no pay cut, work from home if you must. Just focus on healing yourself." His words, though hard-hitting, carried a lifeline that I desperately needed. That very night, when I told Grace I wouldn't be going to work the next day, her first reaction wasn't fear. It was disbelief. "Were you fired?" she asked with a frown. I replied sardonically, "Yeah, Grace, I got canned because of my faltering health." Instead of teasing me about my sarcasm, her voice turned shockingly blunt. "Are you dying?" My heart sank with the sting of her callousness, more not at my life, but at the financial implications of it. "You don't have enough savings, Vince," she scolded. "I kept telling you to leave your friend's company for a higher-paying job overseas. If you had listened, we'd be living comfortably by now." I wanted so much to counter that with the truth, that my stakes in the company were worth over $1.1 million already. But something inside me held back. It seemed Grace cared more for security than for us, and that realization only deepened the silence that followed between us. In the wake of her chilly words, I buried myself in work, nearly losing sight of my routine until my body rebounded with fresh pain, dragging me back to the hospital. Grace this time was right there again, rushing in, pleading with me as the doctor hammered in the severity of my condition. "Take time off, Vince. You're not going to work until you heal," she insisted. Yet despite every warning, the job was too important to me. A company founded by a lifelong friend, where I wasn't merely an employee, but a cornerstone of the business. And so I trudged back to work after a short break, trying to keep life together. Not long after, I was on a call with my doctor when my friend, the CEO, suddenly confronted me in a fury-filled outburst. "How long were you going to keep this a secret?" His anger was palpable, and I had no answer. He took a deep breath and, softening, pleaded, "I'm your friend, Vince. For your sake and for everyone who cares about you, please get the rest you need." I hesitated before confessing my fear, that perhaps I'd never fully recover, that I was clinging to work out of a desperate need to secure Grace's future. Before I could say more, he flatly stated, "I'm putting you on sabbatical." In that charged silence, his firm decision left me with no room for protest. That night, I broke the news to Grace that I wouldn't be going in tomorrow. Her reaction was swift and biting. "Were you fired?" she inquired with a sneer. I mocked the situation and then, with a heavy heart, admitted, "Yes, I was essentially let go because my health was deteriorating." Expecting outrage or heartbreak, I was instead met with her chilling, pragmatic response. "Are you dying?" In that moment, her concern wasn't for me. It was for her financial security. She listed reasons about savings and future plans, and it became glaringly obvious that her love was entwined with money, not emotion. After that night, our marriage hit an insurmountable wall. Conversations turned dry and transactional, as if we were handling business rather than nurturing a bond. Grace became increasingly distant, often leaving early and returning late, always immersed in another world. Then, almost casually, she dropped the final bombshell. "When are we getting divorced?" she asked, as if discussing plans for dinner. My world crumbled. I was already struggling with illness, and now had to face the pain of dismantled vows. I asked in disbelief, "Divorce? Are you serious?" With a roll of her eyes, she snapped, "Vince, I have to move on. I'm already distancing myself." In a mix of bitter humor and agony, I even asked, "So, have you already found someone to replace me?" To my horror, she nodded, casually admitting that she'd been dating someone for a while. The shock of her ease stung deeper than any pain I'd ever felt. It wasn't about falling out of love. It was about the betrayal of our promises. Desperate and disillusioned, I called my friend for advice. "Remove her from everything," he insisted. And though it pained me to do so, I took precautionary measures. I stripped her name off legal documents and my will. In my heart, I could no longer call her my wife. She was simply Grace now, a name devoid of the warmth it once carried. Grace never knew about the hidden equity in the company I'd received long ago, a secret I kept, planning to surprise her one day. I realize now that if she had known, perhaps she would have hidden her true intentions a little longer. Since that fateful night, our interactions became mere formalities. Every morning she left and returned as if our shared past was nothing more than a transactional routine. And then last month she casually asked, "When do we finalize the divorce?" I nearly lost my voice. Divorce was the last thing I wanted when my health was still at risk. With our separation underway, I focused on myself. I clung to every bit of advice from my doctors. Eat right, exercise, and follow every rule to restore my body. Yet the moment I saw her, getting ready for dates, meticulously applying makeup, choosing outfits with care, my progress wavered. I even heard her belittling remarks about my new diet, taunting me for adding days to my miserable life. Each day under the same roof as her left me feeling more and more defeated. Then came a proposal from my friend. Move into the rooftop apartment at work, a small one-bedroom haven that had always served as our escape after long days. Desperate for change and space, I accepted without a second thought. The day I packed my belongings, Grace barely lifted her eyes from her phone. As I hesitated at the door, she asked, "So, is this permanent?" I replied, "Until the divorce is finalized." No further words were exchanged, only the sound of a voicemail later that read, "Thanks for making this so easy." No drama, just a cold relief that our tangled lives were untangling. I kept working from the company's rooftop dwelling for a while, its compact space giving me solace as I began to rebuild. One day, as I returned to gather some personal items, I found Grace's new boyfriend had already moved in. He awkwardly attempted an apology, stammering, "I'm really sorry to hear about your illness." I managed a faint smile, and after exchanging a few curt words about survival and time left, couldn't help but feel a strange satisfaction. Life had handed me a bitter twist, a lesson that sometimes losing what you thought was precious can free you. Over time, my health improved dramatically. I regained strength, lost nearly 25 pounds, and a cautious hope began to take root in my heart. I started considering a fresh chapter in my life, planning to liquidate some equity and even looking for my own house. Friends and colleagues, both concerned and curious, nudged me toward dating again. "Women love a man with a story, Vince," one junior colleague joked. Though flattered and intrigued, I hesitated. Modern dating, with its endless swiping and uncertain connections, wasn't something I was eager to dive into. Then one day, an unexpected text arrived from an unknown number. The message introduced herself as Emily, Brian's wife, and intriguingly, the new lover of my ex-wife. Out of curiosity, I met her. Her surprise at my condition and her revelation about a long-hidden affair between her husband and Grace left me with more questions than answers. Emily divulged that Grace had manipulated Brian's emotions with promises tied to a house and a fortune. A web of lies spun for security more than love. It was a twist I had never seen coming. The following morning, my phone exploded with messages from Grace. "Why did you lie about your health? Why hide your recovery? And what about the equity?" The desperation in her messages was oddly satisfying, a reversal of roles that played on my long scarring pain. I even recalled the day she stormed into my office, slamming the door and screaming accusations at me. I listened, arms folded, absorbing every angry word. "How long were you cheating on me, Grace?" I asked, as she faltered under the weight of her lies. Eventually, under the glare of truth, she broke down and confessed she'd stayed with me merely for my financial security while scheming behind my back for years. Her tears, once used to manipulate, now fell on barren ground. I coldly instructed, "Leave, Grace." And when she begged for one last chance, dinner together, as if we could rewind the years, I merely smirked. I was no longer the man she once knew. Today I stand before you healthier, wiser, and firmly in control of my destiny. I finally healed completely, and my latest diagnosis confirmed it. My journey took me from a nearly fatal illness and a bitter divorce to a small, cozy penthouse that I now proudly call my own. I've regained not only my health, but also my hope. I've learned that sometimes losing everything teaches you exactly what is worth holding on to. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to our channel for more gripping narratives. Drop a like or comment below and share your thoughts. Your voice makes this journey even more meaningful. Thank you for listening, and remember, every end leads to a new beginning.